This live presentation was produced in Ashland, Oregon by the Rogue Valley Metaphysical Library and Event Center. RVML relies on the support of our volunteers, members, and donors to organize and present these programs. For more information about this presentation, or to borrow, download, or purchase other recordings from our catalog, please visit our website at rvml.org.
Good evening. It's such a pleasure to speak at Metaphysical Library in Ashland, finally. I'm very honored and a little bit nervous. I would invite you to relax so I feel more welcomed. Been living in Ashland for 8 years now. It's unbelievable how time flies. But never spoke in front of the core group of spiritual people of Ashland. So I feel like a 16-year-old in a 10th grade exam. A little bit. Plus, I'm blinded with light. So feel free to talk, interrupt, questions, kind of to help me direct the flow. And I'm not going to speak about raw food, but I could. Because I'm going to speak about how food influences in my experience, and I'm only going to share my experience. I'm not going to teach you anything, just share. I don't believe that the more carrots you eat, the more spiritual you become. But I think that when our body becomes healthier, and the body is a miraculous thing, it consists of many units. It's like multiple antenna. It has many dimensions. And so when it's tuned really well, then it works well on all levels, including the spiritual level. But I didn't know about this. And I was born in atheist country. I was born in the Soviet Union at the time when it was prohibited to even speak about religion. And I did not hear anybody except my grandparents, whom I didn't take seriously because they were not educated. I've never heard anybody speaking in my presence about religion until I was maybe 16 or 17 years old. All I heard was there's no God, there's no nothing, it's just a material world, and when we're gone, that's it. Sounds awful. But most people found their spiritual side anyways. And because they were not growing with any kind of dogma, they had a chance and choice to find their own way of seeing this side, because we are spiritual beings, and sooner or later we all figure this out, if not on the deathbed, then earlier. We begin to see that that somehow we look in some other people's eyes and we feel that strange, sometimes uncomfortable feeling. What is that? When I look in my doll's eyes, I don't feel that. When I look in somebody else's eyes, there's something there that touching me. Even if I look in the mirror in my own eyes, I feel that strange, strong feeling. How can I explain it if everything is material? How can I explain that? And at times I think that maybe it's even stronger when people find that on their own, separately from any dogma. And then later they could choose. It's interesting that I'm going to be 52 in this year. And I just suddenly got in touch with some of my classmates after 30 plus years of never talking to them. And I'm asking them, did they find any spiritual beliefs? And they begin to tell me that they all beginning to find, and everybody's finding different things, because we were all brought up the same way. So, food and raw food, cooked food. My family went on a raw food diet on the 21st of January, we'll celebrate our 13th birthday of being a raw family. And we went on raw food because we were very, very ill. We were so sick, we were told by 4 doctors that every one of us would either die or become handicapped soon. My 2 younger children, my husband and myself, and my older son didn't have a problem. He was not lucky. He didn't have to go on raw food. So we were very close to very bad end. I was only 38 when I was told that I will die soon out of arrhythmia. My father passed away from arrhythmia. And my husband was told he'll be in a wheelchair within 2 years and that he will die within 2 months because he had hyperthyroid, 6 times bigger than normal. And my son Sergei was diagnosed with diabetes, and he was told that he was diagnosed with juvenile diabetes, which I think was misdiagnosing. And our daughter was very sick with allergies and asthma. And doctors finally told us, I think you just have to pray. We cannot help you anymore. So we were looking for alternative. We just came to this country, and we were looking for new opportunities, and now we came here to die? No way. We were looking for alternative, and we found raw food. We became raw fooders January 21st, 1994, and we became healthier. Within 3 months, we ran Boulder 10K race as a family. You cannot, believe you die soon if you run that. We did not expect any spiritual awakening. We were just thinking we're just going to be healthier. But we've noticed right away that when we got used to being healthy and not being sick, and we didn't see doctors ever since we went on raw food, we've noticed that life is more boring on raw food. There's no entertainment, no chocolate cakes, no cream puffs, no microwave, no oven, nothing. Carrots. If you want potato, raw, shred it, and whatever, tomatoes, cucumbers, lettuce. Well, and we're Russians, and Russian people, they're known to be really good cooks, and especially Russian women, we make all the borscht and piroshkis and pelmeni and all these things still, and it's part of our life. And now just cucumbers. No champagne on a New Year's Eve. So something was missing. There was suddenly the big gap in our life. Like I was feeling the last pleasure, the biggest pleasure of my life was gone. For a while I was whining it and saying, even the people on the deathbed, on the death row, people on the death row, the worst criminals allowed to eat what they want. And I am just now missing my biggest pleasure in my life. So how am I going to cope with that? I'm missing it. Whenever I saw a picture, read Russian book, or watched Russian movie, I was just mouth-watering. Oh, cabbage rolls. Oh. And the time was passing, but I had this imprint since childhood. I remember I was waking up every Saturday to my mother frying potatoes with something. Whatever, was it some sausage or something, but it's imprint in the brain. And now I'm waking up on Saturday to the Vitamix blender with the gooey stuff inside. So that was that gap. And for a while, we kind of started to feel depressed, and our life was kind of empty, and something was missing. And I don't even remember exactly how it started. How did we fill that gap? I think that the food actually was distracting us from our spiritual path, from looking for who we are, for all these questions. And now we were facing these questions. We were in our late 30s, in the beginning of our 40s, and we had all these questions. And Igor and I were torn apart between the opportunities in the United States, which we had, in businesses. We could earn so much money. We opened 6 businesses, and we became at some point so successful. We had $800,000 on our account. But we had this empty feeling. Inside, we felt like our life is wasting. And then my mother was dying from cancer, from bone cancer. She was exposed to Chernobyl. And she was dying very early. She was 66. And I flew to save her life with a raw food diet. And there, well, she chose not to go on raw food diet. I can tell you if you want. I came with a juicer, and I was making her this juice out of gigantic Chernobyl carrots. But when I went next time to the marketplace, I came back, the house was smelling like fried eggs. And I asked my brother, I said, how dare you? My mother cannot have those. She's supposed to be on juice. And he said, I couldn't do anything. As soon as he left, she said, son, I'm so hungry, I'm starved. And she just begged me. She said, well, I'm in so much pain, just I want some entertainment. And then I felt so ashamed. I said, my poor mother is dying, and I'm deciding for her. Who am I? I'm nobody. And I said, Mother, it's okay. If you would rather eat whatever you want, you can do that. It's your life. It's your right. And I'm not offended. And she said, is it okay? Then I would rather do that. So I packed up the juicer. And we just stayed there for 10 days. When she was dying, we came to her room, Igor and I, to say goodbye. And then I was expecting her to say something like, well, have a good life or something, whatever, something special, prayer maybe. My mother became Seventh Adventist in her last years. But instead, she gave me a very strange look. She looked at me with a burning sight, and she lit a fire inside of me. I was all shivering, and then she said, I wasted my life. I didn't expect that. I said, Mother, what are you talking about? You had a wonderful life. You have a wonderful family. You were this and you were this. You were a sculptor. You were a writer. You were... And she said, please shut up and hear. And suddenly I felt as if she is trying to give to her beloved people the most important message that she's already halfway in another place where I couldn't see, and she's giving me a message. And her eyes were just big and burning, and she said, I wasted my entire life. And we looked at each other with Igor, and we couldn't talk. The only thing we could think is that, am I wasting my life too? And the answer was, of course you're wasting every single minute of your precious life. And then after that, I just don't remember anything. How we got in the plane, how we were flying for 12 hours to New York, how we were driving from New York. The only question we had in our head, are we wasting our life? Do I want to waste my life? No, I don't. I really would like to do what I'm supposed to do. That was the message we got. We returned back to Denver. We were living there, and then we couldn't continue our life as it was before. Our business went like kaboom. We lost everything so quickly, went in foreclosure in several months. But we never regret. It didn't really bother us. We went traveling with our children for 2.5 years, homeless and unemployed, trying to find out what is the life for. And one day we were driving through the state of Virginia, and I saw the sign. There was the workshop. It was called Dialogues on Clarity. That was very intriguing for me. Dialogues on Clarity. And that was Krishnamurti Society, and I really like Krishnamurti. But we didn't have any money, and I came and I said, would you allow us to trade? Cleaning or something, I really would like to take it. And I was the only one who could take it because Sergei and Valya were only like 9 and 10 years old. So they were the ones to clean, and Igor didn't speak enough English, so I was the one to participate. They said, sure. They didn't send anybody away. It was a very interesting workshop. You could all do it one time. There were no teachers, no lectures. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, people paid $300 each. There were just rooms, many rooms, and they divided 50 people into groups of 4 or 5. And they just gave guidance. They said, you just go in this room and spend there 3 hours talking sincerely. You're not allowed to describe much of events of your life. You're only allowed to describe your emotions honestly, your feelings, exactly how you feel, exactly how you view them. And then there will be a little break, and then you'll continue. And that was for 3 days. When people came to that workshop, they were all having so many problems. They were all unhappy. They were divorcing. They were sick. They were losing money. They were, you know how life is. And I was shocked that people were talking about things that I would be ashamed to talk about in front of strangers. And I want to say that before that, I used to believe that I was really not a very good person. I was thinking I was really a bad person. So I had to pretend all the time that I'm better. And that was my habit. That's what I was always feeling. I don't know if it comes from education, from government, from what, from bringing up, but that's how I felt, low self-esteem, which I would never tell you openly. And there I saw people just talking openly about things that I would be ashamed to let people know. But I felt the same way. They were like talking my words. So I barely said anything for 3 days, but I was sitting there trembling and eager. And when the workshop was over in the end of Sunday, everybody were glowing from happiness. They still had the same problems, but everybody were happy. People found common ground. People found the solid ground under their feet. They figured out who they are, and they were the ones who needed to hear what they were saying. And I was eager to talk, but I didn't have anybody. But I finally became brave enough to talk to my husband. And I told him, Igor, can I tell you everything sincerely, and you promise you'll never stop loving me? And he said, you haven't been sincere yet? I said, that's not what you think. He said, I promise, you can talk. And when I started telling, I didn't know how to say those things. I didn't have enough words. I've never used words that I was saying. I was grasping and gasping, and I couldn't believe what I was saying. And I looked at him, and he had eyes full of tears. And he hugged me, and he said, my love, this is you saying things that I most want to hear, and that's how I feel, and let me tell you how I want to say. And I said, that I didn't finish. He said, but it's my turn. And then we were sitting there talking, and we couldn't drive, we couldn't go anywhere. There was a fountain pouring out of each one of us, and it was an enormous pleasure. It was refreshing. It was making us younger and more energetic, and we were becoming something. And then we started driving, and we couldn't, and our children were just amazed. Our parents suddenly just talk all the time. And I figured out we were speaking over 1,000 hours altogether, because 1 hour is 60 miles, and I was looking at mileage. And we changed. We changed. I stopped being afraid to be myself. I stopped being afraid to say how I feel. I don't care what I say, because I know that people would love me more when I'm myself. I don't have to pretend. People are sick and tired of having pretension. People want, as much as I do, to hear what's real. There were people in my life who I always used to be afraid of, like, for example, some lawyers, some very people on a high hierarchy, some government people, some rich people, some people who speak very nicely and very formally. I couldn't compete ever with those who speak quickly, whether it's in Russian or English, and polished. And some car sales dealers, I was afraid. Some other people, I was always afraid. And now I started to speak honestly, even to those people I was afraid of. And I found out that those people, they appreciated it more than anybody else. I spoke sincerely to policemen and to judge and to anybody. And I've always started to see that people really feel for what I'm saying, and they respect and they love and they want it, and they I appreciate that. Since then, maybe several times I tried eating cooked food. When I visited Russia and met some of my relatives, or certain times when I was just in a situation where there was nothing, just occasionally very small amounts, and that I would just, look at that, oh my goodness. But then I felt that it instantly distracted me from being right in there where I like to be. So I would just say, I really consciously choose to stick to this diet that is very stripped of any sensations and any too many colors and too much distraction, which will I don't want to even give a chance to be distracted from that life. And I started to like less things like entertainment. Since then, we never had TV in our house. I'm so glad that I started speaking sincerely with my children, my two younger children, because they were able to pick it up and develop that. They used to be afraid of me speaking to them. And if I say, hey, we need to talk, they would just, what did we do wrong? But now if I said we need to talk, they say, yeah, let's go. We built up this beautiful relationship between us, and I could always ask straight, are you irritated with me? Or am I sounding irritating? Or am I looking funny? Or how do you feel? Just tell me what it is exactly. Find the right word and tell me that. I want to know. I want to know the truth. My dear friends, I feel that this brought me on my spiritual path. Something is whistling. I keep moving. You have some magnetic power that I cannot resist. I don't think it's just the raw food, but raw food definitely, the diet played a role in that. That my body is very healthy. Even if I have some extra pounds, I still lost 120 12 years ago. I gained back 30. But it comes and goes. But I'm just a woman of a big body, and I think if I were not on a raw food diet, I probably would be huge, like many of my relatives. And I'm very happy where I am. I don't wear glasses. I've never had glasses yet in my life. I don't have any gray hair, and I never colored my hair in my life. I walk every morning on the mountain. We live on Terrace Street. I have a big horse trough full of water on my porch where I jump every morning right from the bed. And today I had to break very thick ice in it. Because I get up the first one in my family, and it was like this thick. And I usually break it with this metal bucket, because then I have to take out the sharp pieces of ice. And I started to hit it, and it wouldn't break. And I just started to call Igor. Say, Igor, help me to break this ice, because I'm getting cold. So he came with a big stick and helped me. Well, he is actually swimming in the lake. He had to break ice in the lake in reservoir in Ashland today. And his dream, he's over there. Can you wave, Igor? Yes. You know Igor. He's everywhere. He's the one who doing push bars, push-ups everywhere. So his dream is to have a polar bear club in Ashland, because he is former president of Moscow Polar Bear Club. He made me swim in the Moscow River in the winter when I was nursing Sergei and Valya when I was pregnant. So it's his dream. If anybody's interested, let him know. It's a huge pleasure. So anyways, I don't have any illnesses. I don't have any more arrhythmia that I was supposed to die 13 years ago. And I feel very good. And as I told you in the beginning, when the body is tuned and it's healthy, then it helps the spirit, everything, all unities, on all levels, it helps to feel vibrations. And I do believe that we are spiritual beings. And our spirits are so powerful. Look at the blade of grass. If a sprout of grass could go through the asphalt, have you seen how it cracks the asphalt or moves the rocks and goes through this thick layer of dirt to the sun? And this is also spirit, because I think that not only human spiritual, there are lots of things that we don't understand. We could call them different names. Maybe that's not appropriate word spirit for that, but it's some kind of unusual power. So what can we do, humans? We could do miracles. I used to be just a woman with a good education who knew how to go around and do business, and I made money. Then I lost everything, and I started to follow my heart. Of course, at first I didn't know how that even is possible. I heard these words, follow your heart, but I thought it's just one of those beautiful expressions. But then I met Dr. Bernard Jensen. He already in heaven, but I met him. I was very honored to meet him. And he was a wonderful, wonderful, noble man. He knew Krishnamurti very well. He had talks with him. And he said, it's very, very easy to make choices in life. I said, Dr. Jensen, what are you talking about? It's easy to make choices? I never could make choices. I always get confused. I want to choose everything. And he said, it's easy. You just ask your heart and then observe the feeling. And if you feel comfortable and feel kind of easy with that, then it's the right choice. But if you ask your heart and your heart makes you feel uncomfortable, then it's not what you're supposed to choose. That's it. And I tried it, and it worked right away. And since that time, I think I've never made the wrong choice. And that's how we came to Ashland. We were hiking on a Pacific Crest Trail in 1998. And there was too much snow. It was El Nino. We were hiking as a family. We loved hiking on the Pacific Crest Trail. In fact, before we reached Ashland, we decided we're going to keep going to the rest of our life back and forth. Because it was excellent. We didn't need any money there. It was free living, no car insurance, just fresh air, food under your feet, only nice people, total safety there, much safer than in the city. And then we came to Ashland. And as we were walking on the street, we heard voices, all four of us heard voices inside of us saying, that's your home, that's your home. I said, what, that voice? Couldn't be. I've never heard it in any other place yet. Even in San Diego, I didn't hear that voice, which is a heaven for raw fooders. But then we came to Jackson Hot Springs and asked, the rangers told us there are 30 feet of snow and we have to wait for 6 weeks before the snow will melt, and they would not let us go on the trail. So we had to stay in Ashland. So we thought, where would we go? We had $5 in our pocket. In the wilderness, you don't need money, but here you need money. And we went to Jackson Hot Springs. We met Jerry Lehrburger at the entrance. We didn't know who he is. I said, sir, do you know if they need here any help? We would like to trade work to stay here in a tent for free. And he said, the only position I can offer you is the chef in the kitchen. And I said, oh, no, that wouldn't work. He said, ma'am, you were just so desperate a minute ago. I said, no, it wouldn't work for us. He said, why? I said, you don't want to know. He said, no, I insist. I said, we're raw fooders. He said, hallelujah. He said, Siamana, anybody know Siamana? He said, we just opened the educational center and the kitchen, and we bought a Vitamix and a juicer, champion juicer, and dehydrator, and we wanted to open some kind of a living food kitchen, but we couldn't find any chef. And I said, there are 4 of us here. He said, you can make raw food. I said, sure, just, buy us some food. He took us to Ashland Co-op. He paid for everything. I said that. And then we jumped on those equipment, pushed the buttons, made the food. His wife, Beverly, came. Simona came. Kia was working there at that time, ate, and they said, wow. Simona told me that just day before we showed up, they were standing in a circle praying to God, saying, "Please send our way some raw food, chef." Isn't it something? So we were part of it. And, all these people, it's true. You can ask Dr. Lerberger. So we stayed there for 6 weeks. We studied their raw food restaurant until now. It's still working on and off. And then we went on a trail and finished it in Canada. And then we came back to Ashland. And I believe that everyone has a mission. And I used to believe that everybody has a certain mission, like one has a mission to be a barber and another has a mission to be a musician. Now I more believe that we have a mission to become healthy. We may have a mission to love something and share with others. And it doesn't matter what exactly you're doing, because whatever skills we get, then these skills we use as an extension of our body to fulfill our mission. And I think that those people who work as a salesman, they have a great mission of being teachers. Because listen, they could make us buy things that we don't even need. If those people, for example, would apply their skills, their talents, to convert people into something good, like eating healthy, growing organic food, wearing natural clothing, other things like that, good things, they could be world teachers. I believe that we all have this mission. And I have experienced in my life that when I'm following this mission, I found what is my mission. When I follow this mission, everything I need comes to me. And I don't have anymore this huge, tricky, complicated business. My business is very simple now. But everything I need, when I need it, comes to me miraculously. It doesn't matter if it's $10,000, $14,000, or $50,000. It just comes to me when I'm writing a book. I know next week I will have from somewhere, totally unexpectedly, totally unimaginary. It just comes, and then it happens. If it's meant to be. And my life is so good. I know that on my deathbed, I will not be saying I wasted my life, because I'm not wasting it since I was 38. When I was sitting today in the morning, I was thinking, I cannot imagine what my life would be if I would understand this when I was like 2 years old. But I think I'm getting greedy. I can move in any direction. You can ask me questions. I don't know. My mission is to, because my parents gave me very good education, so I can read scientific books. And I'm good at telling stories. So I could take complicated knowledge, complicated text, and I could convert it into very simple words so that even 5-year-old will understand what I mean. And that's what I do. I'm making the gap between science and ordinary people very narrow. That's my mission. And I do it mostly in nutrition field, but I'm ready to expand. Right now I'm gathering information for the book about swimming in a cold water, because I think that American people need to know more about this wonder. And then whatever will come my way, I will just do it. If I have a little time, I would like to tell you about greens, because it's also very spiritual. When we went on raw food, we reached plateau after 7 years when we stopped feeling good. We stopped feeling better and better and better. We felt good. But then we started to go backwards a little bit, which was very unusual. We didn't do anything different. And then we found out that everybody else reaches that plateau. Some people reach it as quickly as after 2 years. And I started to research everywhere, and nobody knew the answer. Everybody said different things. They say, oh, you need B12, oh, you need calcium, you need amino acids, you need something. And it's a long story, but I found out that, well, nobody knew. I had to find out. So I started to look at chimpanzees. Chimpanzees are closest animal to humans. They share with us 99.4% of the same sequence of genes, which is very close. And so they eat. Let me show you. They eat almost half of their diet are greens. And that was the explanation, because in my family we didn't eat greens. It was like a duty. For us it was like obligation. I knew we had to eat greens, but did we eat that many greens? No, we didn't. We didn't like greens. It was not habitual for us to eat greens, so we did not eat enough greens. And then I figured out what is the typical diet of ordinary people on an American typical diet is, and that is that. Most of it is rice, potato, bread, pasta, and other carbohydrates, then animal protein like yogurt, butter, eggs. Even people who don't want to eat ice cream, they eat yogurt, which is animal food, and cheese, and then oils, and then lots of carrots, what we call vegetables, and then fruits, and then one wilted leaf of iceberg lettuce in a Subway sandwich. And then I called my friends who've been on raw food for a while, and I made a diagram of what raw fooders eat typically. And raw fooders eat lots of fruit. We, in my family, we eat 8 pounds of fruit per day per person. Which is not really a lot if you don't eat anything else. It's like one bag of apples. And then we were juicing lots of carrots. Carrot has been promoted to us too much as a very good thing, and this is the only thing that we could buy by 25-pound bags. You don't buy anything else, like cucumbers or tomatoes, 25 pounds ever, even apples. And then the number one mistake that raw fooders typically make is I think it's very important information, they overeat seeds and nuts. Because they are missing carbohydrates, as I told you in the beginning, we're all missing. Many people say, oh, if I could only eat raw bread, then I could go on raw food diet. So we substituted on raw food diet carbohydrates with fats. We were making our bread out of nuts. Nuts are 80% fat. So that was a big mistake, because in the beginning it was okay, but then after a while the body gets out of balance. And that's when we reach plateau and begin to feel backwards. And then raw fooders eat a lot of avocados and oils because they get tired of eating small increments very often, like chimpanzees. They want to eat something substantial and then just forget about this for several hours. So they ate lots of rich in fat food, avocados and oils. And then we were eating a little bit more greens. But if we compare this diet with the diet of typical American diet, that explains why people on raw food feel better, because it's a lot better. It's revolutionary better, right? But if we compare this diet with diet of chimpanzees, which I believe is our supposed to be diet, according to my research, then we see that this one has a lot more greens. No wonder greens are made by sunshine. It's a vibration of sunshine. This is a prime food of the world. This is where the cows get their protein, and elephants, and horses, and chlorophyll. What's chlorophyll? It's liquid sunshine. To eat more greens is like doing sun gazing. Greens is the prime food. Greens is the only food group that has absolutely everything our body needs, like a puzzle. No other food that exists in the world, including whatever, fish, shellfish, dairy, any fruit, no other food matches it as well as greens. But we don't like greens. Most of us don't like greens. And I was thinking, how in the world we don't like greens? why am I not liking greens? I went to the SOU one day, and I went in the library and I was reading their biology. I said, why do I not like greens? And I found out that because greens have everything so precious in them that feeds the entire plant, roots and seeds and fruit, it is protected from leaking, from being dehydrated, dried out, or scratched, or by placing all these beautiful nutrients are placed in wooden boxes. We call them cells. Cellulose is nothing but wood, very thin layer of wood. It's like hard wooden boxes. And it's all like thousands of cells in one leaf. And in order to get this digested, the body needs, we need to chew it to creamy consistency. How many of us really chew greens to creamy consistency? I took leaf of iceberg, dinosaur kale. I put it in my mouth. I chewed it for like 15 minutes. I spit it on my palm. It was still not creamy consistency. And then in the book, Anatomy, I read that in order to get nutrients out of it, we have to have normal hydrochloric acid in the stomach. And if we don't have it, then you cannot digest them. Then the body will reject greens. So it will create nauseous feeling, reaction. It will say, hey, honey, don't even waste your time. And don't waste this green. I cannot digest it. I don't have enough hydrochloric acid. Forget it. And that's why we don't like greens. Because about 90% of people in today's world, thanks to civilization and all this convenience, we don't have enough hydrochloric acid in our stomachs. I have created a questionnaire. Well, I copied it from gastroenterologist, and you can test yourself. You'll see that you don't have enough hydrochloric acid. And then I decided, well, what hydrochloric acid does, it liquefies it in our stomach. So how can we liquefy it? So I put some greens in the blender with water, and I added banana to it, just like chimpanzees. And then I called it green smoothie. Have you seen green smoothie in the co-op? That's my creation. And I've written this book, Green for Life, that received last year a big award, national award. Becoming really popular. So we started drinking green smoothies. That's something that we can trick our body because it tastes like banana. It looks horribly green, but it tastes like banana. Because it's already liquefied, it doesn't require any hydrochloric acid. And then this sunshine, this green, the chlorophyll comes right into blood cells, the bloodstream, and it goes into transmitters, neurotransmitters, and it brings so much vibrance, so much energy to the body. That's amazing. And I attribute my personal extra energy and my feeling, my health, my crispy vision, that I don't need any glasses. And so many hours of energetic work I have every day to green smoothies. And that I am committed. I'm going to drink them till I die. It's been 3 years now since my family began to drink green smoothies. So this just briefly. Well, I think the formula of good health is raw food diet plus green smoothies. If you have any questions. Mm-hmm. Say it again. My son Sergei was talking about his tooth when he was 9 years old. He had tooth that was what? Oh, in the tooth. The filling came out.
The filling was coming out because another tooth was growing.
Oh. Well. Okay, let me just, I don't remember, he been in so many talk shows what exactly, but I'll tell you that when we reached the plateau, our health started to go backwards. A little bit, not really much. I didn't get my arrhythmia, but I developed a couple warts, which is a symptom of low immunity. And I started to have some gray hair, which now is gone. And other things like bristle nails, couple things, blurry vision in the evening. And Sergei and Valya, they developed some cavities, which was very unfortunate because in the beginning of raw food diet, teeth were so good. The dentists were just giving us praises. And that was my major concern, their teeth. So when they started drinking green smoothies, their teeth restored very well. Now our dentist, Dr. Jared Anderson, says that they have excellent teeth and gums. But they had to put some fillings in there. Did I answer your question? I don't know.
His tooth was pushing the filling out, and it was healing.
Well, I don't believe at this time that it is very common and it is very possible. I think that some individuals could do it. I actually met in my life 2 people who were able to restore the tooth, to heal the infection. But these people put so much work into that I don't even know that everybody would be willing to do that much work. I think for the teeth, the most is prevention. And I've done lots of research. I even researched back to 3.6 million years ago, and I have pictures of the skulls from Japan that I'm envious. And I know that our people had 1 cavity per 100 people until 3 million years ago. And then they continued to have pretty good teeth until they started to grow grains. Because they used to eat lots of grains before that. And then grains were very convenient. They traded convenience for lack of nutrients. But they still were doing pretty good until the beginning of 18th century when people, the Industrial Revolution came, when people invented canning, white sugar, white flour, a metal grinder so they could do white flour, and refining of the sugar. And these 3 things really caused humanity in most of industrial countries to go from okay diet to processed artificial diet. And then the first time in history, in the beginning of 19th century, the women gave birth to very sick children. And these children were grown and lived their life on processed food, and they gave birth even to more sicker children. And from that, our health started to go down. From the age of 1900, when the cancer was 3 cancer deaths per 100,000 people, tripled in 100 years, and there were now 9 per 100,000. So everything started just to go very quickly, and we are right now on the brink. We all located. Don't think that we've been eating cooked food for thousands of years. This is just not true. And I made a detailed research, and I could even give a presentation just about this, and I have lots of numbers. I've recently finished writing a new book about this. We only been eating cooked food, processed food, as much as we're eating it now, only for less than 200 years, just a little less than 200 years. And we could reverse that. To go raw would be not enough, because we are depleted by several generations. What will be necessary is to eat as much raw food as you can, but the most important is to begin to consume blended greens, to nourish your body, because we need to nourish not only what we lost, what we missed in our life, like what you missed today, yesterday, and last year, but what your mother missed and your grandmother missed, like 3-4 generations. Luckily, we live long life. And 12,000 years ago, Egyptians were the first community of people who were living on land. Before then, they were just traveling, hunter-gatherers. Gather-hunters, I would say. 12,000 years. Can you believe it that since then we only had 500 generations of humans? Only 500. Before we were hunter-gatherers. That's not much. We didn't really mutate much. So since the beginning of 19th century, we only had like 7 generations. Not that much. We're not lost yet. We could go backwards. And the best thing is just to begin to consume blended greens. I'm so believer of that. And if you need more information, I would be happy to provide it. It's so obvious. Liquefied sunshine. Yes.
I have two questions for you. Two questions. It's not working. Two questions for you. One is about spirulina as a source of chlorophyll and so forth. And the second is about protein. The lack of protein, they keep talking about you're not getting enough protein.
What is your name, please?
Jim.
Jim, thank you so much for these questions. Well, spirulina is, I would say, if to choose any supplements, the best would be the ones that are like found in nature in a green form. And if I would recommend, like if my oldest son, he would never go on raw food completely because of his lifestyle and style. So I would say drink spirulina or blue green algae or plankton, phytoplankton or something like that. But not artificial or synthetic things. I wouldn't call names because I don't want to be sued or run by the car. But natural, something that's green, something the body could recognize, rather than synthetic that's in the bottle that has 100 names in it. Because greens have 120. That's exactly how many we need, and it's natural. However, just the only thing about spirulina is that there are three kinds of chlorophyll: chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B, chlorophyll C. Chlorophyll A is the one that represents, that's very, very similar to human blood molecule. Very similar, it's round. And chlorophyll A comes from plants that grow on planet Earth. Remember how in the Bible it says, and I give you every herb. And our planet has green color, abundance of what we need. No reason to be starved. Chlorophyll B comes from sea vegetables like kelp, dulse, things like the phytoplankton. And then chlorophyll C comes from spirulina and all this half plants, half already animal, which is still okay, better than French fries. About proteins. I'm just translating right now my book into Russian and the chapter about proteins. It's right fresh in my brain, so beautiful. Every time I read it, I'm just amazed. There's a huge difference between animal protein and plant protein. The protein in greens is represented in separated, free amino acids. They're all separated. Here is phenylalanine, here is this just separated, the tryptophan and the lysine. And in animal protein, they all already created for the cow, for the chicken, for the fish. They're somebody's. So your body has to, when you eat somebody's protein, the body has to separate them and then take the ones that you need, put them together. That's lots of work. And that's why we always feel tired and sleepy when we eat animal protein. And then there are lots of leftovers that circulate in your body causing allergies. Now, how old is the molecule of protein in the cow? How old it is? It's used. It's secondhand. Then the protein in the leaf, how old is it? It's a couple days old. And when you're getting it from the cow made it from the leaf. It doesn't make sense. Why do you just go past the broker? And amazingly and ironically, we consume most of animal protein in the world, in America, and the most prevalent disease today is a lack of protein. Statistically, most people lack protein. And what is the symptom of lack of protein? Many people don't even know that out of 22 amino acids, our body could do 13 and 9 we have to eat. Those 9 are those that turn into transmitters in the brain, which is a little bit simplified explanation. Why do we need neurotransmitters? To be happy, not to crave bad foods, to have sleep, not to have any bad cravings like for cocaine or tobacco or drugs, to have good spirit, to be balanced. How many of you feel symptoms of lacking of those amino acids in your body? This is like typical. I can show you. I came prepared just for any kind of question. Because if they say, where do you get your protein? here. If, for example, according to researcher Julia Ross, for example, if your body is low in amino acid tryptophan, you may feel the following symptoms: negativity, depression, worry, anxiety, low self-esteem, obsessive thoughts, behaviors, winter blues, PMS, irritability, rage, heat intolerance, panic, phobia, afternoon and evening cravings, fibromyalgia, TMJ, hard to get to sleep, insomnia, disturbed sleep, suicidal thoughts, cravings for sweets. Anybody has cravings for sweets? Starch, chocolate. Anybody craves chocolate? That's not because of Christmas. Ecstasy, marijuana, tobacco. Then one bunch of kale has 27 milligrams of tryptophan. One head of endive has 26. Well, one serving of chicken has 77, but we really don't need that much. We need like 20 grams of protein altogether per day. So that's plenty, and it's good, high quality one. Okay? That's about proteins. Yes, please?
I was wondering, can you tell us a little bit about how the raw foods work on the body with body defenses against like bacteria, viruses, and so forth?
I would like to explain what immunity is. 4 minutes before the break. We can run to the Canadian border in 4 minutes. What is immunity? What happens to the body when a person dies? The body begins to decay. And then maybe in 3 months, if you put it in the soil, it's gone. Because the dead body doesn't have immunity. And so immunity is the only thing that stops us from decaying. As long as we're alive, we have some level of immunity. So as I see that you're all walking around, so you do have great immunity. I don't see your arms eaten off or your eyes is gone. We all have immunity. Then there are things that weaken immunity, and there are things that boost immunity. Jumping in the cold water boosts your immunity. Drinking greens, blended greens, boosts your immunity. Sunshine boosts your immunity. Good music, love, good thoughts, following your heart, fulfilling your life mission, all boost immunity. All the good things increase your immunity. All the bad things, sugar. Sugar lowers the immunity. Why do we crave sugar? Whenever you're in balance, you don't crave sugar. You don't crave no sugar at all except fruit. Fruit is a simple sugar, and it doesn't cause level of insulin go up or down. When you eat some complex sugar, like refined sugar, white starch, your body has to neutralize it. How does the body does it? The body raises level of insulin. It's like whenever there's a fly, there's a guy catching it, right? So you have sugar, the body has insulin, the guy who's catching that sugar. And then you just said, oh, it's a Christmas time. Let me eat a piece of chocolate today. It's a Christmas time. And then you eat that, then your body cannot ignore that, all that sugar. The body has to raise a level of insulin. And then tomorrow morning, the body is serving you, is dedicated to you. It says, I already have insulin for you in your blood. So as a result, you wake up in the morning and you crave sugar to neutralize the insulin. Because now these guys are running around catching the fly and there's no flies. So you begin to crave sugar. This is nature. Nature is more powerful than any of your willpower. And nature will always win. And then you will continue to eat sugar, but if you overeat more than one piece of chocolate, then your body will make more insulin. It will continue to happen until you will do something to stop that. For example, you go on a fasting retreat, or the stores are closed, it's a Christmas day, and there's no way to buy sugar, or something else happens. You go on an inhabited island, or there's no sugar, then the level of insulin goes down. But if it goes for too long then you have constantly high level of insulin, and then you have low sugar in your blood, and that is called hypoglycemia, which is border diabetic condition. Does it make sense? Did I explain it well? Well, yes, please. It's time for a break. We have a wonderful, wonderful Christmas sale over there. This is our sole income, and we sell books like 40% off if you buy one of each. Just read our special. Thank you so much. I hope you're enjoying this. Thank you. Now, while everybody is coming, I'll tell you a little bit about my children. Some of you know Sergei and Valya. They go to salsa dancing, and you can see them at capoeira and yoga and kickboxing and whatever, slacklining and climbing in Mount Ashland. They kind of took it almost for granted because they didn't know anything that rather than raw food since they were 8 and 9. And it's like they did not really make a conscious decision to go raw. It's that it was there for them. And I would say I had a feeling that they took for granted even their health, how they felt. They kept telling us that they don't feel any different from others, that they feel like everybody else. They say, Mom, are you sure that everybody else is feeling differently than we do? But then when they went to college, they started to communicate more with other kids, and I've noticed that there is a big difference. There was a time when they said, we're not going to teach any more raw food classes because it's so boring and people don't need it. No, who cares about that? It's probably because their classmates didn't really care that much about diet, and they had a false impression that people are not really interested in that. Plus, how many times you can talk about diet when I've been teaching it for 12 years. And it's interesting that Sergei graduated from college in January. Then he went and he tried many jobs. You cannot almost say what he didn't try. He even went to Hawaii, spent 3 months there, taking people to Haleakala and renting surfboards and coffee shops and whatever. And then he came back and he says, I graduated from college, why I cannot find anything for more than $750 a month? He even worked as a ranger in Yosemite Park? And he says, why is that? And then he said, plus it's also boring. You have to do something like on a conveyor, like Charlie Chaplin in modern times, like all the time, the same thing over and over. And somehow, naturally, consciously, he came back to teaching raw food. But he doesn't want to do it the way we were doing it, just the old-fashioned way. He wants to do it somehow. And so he took the class thanks to, I forgot your name. Yeah, thanks to you. Anyway, my both kids took and graduated from RVTV, which is Rock Valley Television station in Ashland. And they now do film editing, and they already did in like short period of time several movies. They submitted 2 of them to Ashland Film Festival, and today they finished an interview with Sergei. Hilarious DVD, 45 minutes. I watched it 4 times. Each time I was dying from laughter, rolling on the carpet. It is hilarious, and it is like as if it is not about raw food, but you see this kid full of energy and laughter and joy and happiness and doing so many fun things, everything except drinking and taking drugs in that movie. And the movie is shot by Valya and edited by them both. It's just so wonderful. I'm so glad that they find a way to do what they didn't want to do, but he ends up doing that. Anyways, people asked me about, Victoria, you're claiming that everything exists in greens. You can get everything from greens. How did you figure this out? I did a lot of research. For example, I took beets, and I took the beet greens and I compared what they have, the content, and other greens. I took whatever greens and beet and the roots I can find possibly. I was looking in internet in different countries in different languages. And for example, here is all the essential minerals, vitamins and nutrients that we need. You can see that the roots has very, very few of those except calories. Roots have more because they have more sugar. And then beet greens have more of everything. For example, iron, it has 7.3 times more in greens than in the root. And magnesium, 3 times more. Magnesium is very important for the blood. And then zinc. Zinc is very important. 92% of people, according to statistic in the United States, are lacking zinc. So 3 times more zinc in greens. And then vitamin C, 6 times. 60% of people lack vitamin C and have a mild scurvy in today's, and heart attack is one of the symptoms, possibly, of scurvy. And problems with circulation, and when cholesterol is clogging the arteries, it's one of the possible side effects of scurvy. And then vitamin A, it has 192 times more the leaves have than the roots. And then vitamin K, 2,000 times more in leaves than in the roots. Vitamin K is so important. Not only is it important for blood clotting, but it is important for structural, for connective tissues. If mothers, pregnant women and nursing mothers would have enough vitamin K, we would never have people or children born with distorted faces. We would all have absolute perfect, harmoniously looking faces, because the nose, the cartilage, all the ears, the skull is made with a lot of vitamin K in it. And whenever we have 2 small noses, like mine, for example, that's a symptom that our mothers did not consume enough greens. Interesting. So what do? We usually grow beets, then we collect the bulbs, and then we throw away the most important essential part, the one that we all get sick from because we lack that. We put it in black garbage bags. We don't even put it back into the soil, and we throw it away. And then we boil it, and then we eat it. Why is it sweet if it's not for us? We humans, we think, well, whatever is sweet, it's for us. Why is it sweet? It is for microorganisms in the soil. Have you noticed that the roots in nature never have that shape? They usually look like hair, called rootlets. This is the best way to feed microorganisms. The plants, they have their own farm under the ground, in the soil. And there are 2,000 plus microorganisms that grow in the soil. And the plants are saying to us, you can have my fruit and you can have my greens. You cannot have my trunk or my pith, which is the stem. You cannot have my roots. Roots are for microorganisms in the ground, so eat that, but leave that in the ground. So I could go through the winter, and I could feed my farm under the soil. So by the next spring, I'll have more nutrients in the soil, so I could keep growing. We don't do that. When we just studied agriculture, the soil consisted of 100% humus, consisted of 100% organic matter. Now it is down to 2%, and that's why they say the soil is depleted. But organic soil is 27% humus. But really, I'm not prepared to talk a lot about this. Our lecture is Spiritual Awakening with Raw Foods. But I will give you the facts that I think are the most interesting. But I will give you one controversial information that I will be brave enough to share with you here in a vegan community, mostly, about insects. Somebody asked me during the break, Victoria, don't you dare teach everybody that we don't need any protein. Being vegan myself, I've been always trying to subconsciously to avoid that subject, not to pay attention. But when I was doing my research for the book Green for Life, I couldn't not notice that I could not find even one single tribe in the history that did not consume some kind of insects, mostly insects, or shellfish, or fish, or something. I just didn't find even one single vegan tribe. I continue to be vegan, but I decided to be true to myself and open up, and I wanted to find out for myself, what is that? And I went to Dr. Gabriel Cousins and asked him, I said, what do you think about insects? And others, well, people tell me, well, I'm vegan. Then I talked to some farmers in this valley, and I said, what do you think about insects? Chimpanzees, especially in the winter months, they eat about up to 7% insects. And then I started to go on the internet, and I started to read Purdue University articles and some other. I found out that 80% of people in the world consciously eat insects. 100% of people eat not consciously. For example, there are about 60 particles of maggots in each jar of peanut butter. And that we all consume if we eat peanut butter. Chocolate has also. And it's already at the present pretty high levels of pesticides we use. The only way for us to go, if we want to complain, if we don't like it, is to demand that the government puts more pesticides, which will still not guarantee that there are no particles, because insects have much faster generations than humans, and they will mutate much faster. So I asked my friend, I wouldn't tell his name, he's vegan and he's a farmer. I said, so what do you think? We had a little brainstorm this summer, and he said, well, he said, it looks like if we're vegans, we shouldn't eat insects. But if we would feel even comfortable around other people eating insects, then we will have to put less pesticides, and eventually there will be less insects killed by pesticides. He said that actually is more vegan attitude towards farming. He said, as a vegan farmer, as an organic farmer, I have to pick up all these beetles by hand of my apples and of my produce, and then I destroy them. He says, if I would know that somebody would use them, I would sell them. But he says people really are repulsive. That's how we educated. I am not for insects, and probably in my life I will never be able to step over that education that my mother was very particular about parasites, and so I have this imprinted in my head. But after I read and researched, I understand that we're probably supposed to eat insects, because 3.6 million years ago, humans were eating organic fruit which was full of insects. There are 800 variety of edible insects in Eastern Africa. That's where humans came from. I think we're supposed to, and each termite has 2.8 micrograms of vitamin B12, which is more than our daily amount needed. One termite. And somebody asked me, how do you wash your produce? I said, that's the only thing that I kind of do almost consciously. I do not really wash really well my produce. I used to soak my produce and watch how these things will float. Now I eat it all. Like, for example, raspberries. If you soak raspberries, you'll see lots of things floating. Now I don't wash them. I think, well, at least some B12 will get into me. But I was talking to a professor from Purdue University. The government in the United States is now making steps towards making insects available and promoting them in schools. They sent a professor to Japan to study, and when he came back, he was total convert, and he was eating things that I couldn't even pronounce, like crickets in the chocolate and things like that, I cannot imagine that. But he is actually going to schools and teaching children, and he's teaching them how they grow flower worms and he teaching them to eat those, and he thinks that it's very potentially beneficial for. He says that he's also used to be vegan. He says that cows and pigs and goats, they have nervous system. When they kill, they really suffer a lot. The insects have much more primitive nervous system, and some people, official biologists, they believe they don't suffer as much as cows. Or maybe we just don't see that, I don't know. But he says that if people would be able to eat insects, some people, instead of cows, we would have less suffering. Plus, the insects don't have no waste. Like cows and pigs, they have lots of waste. And so I really don't want to go too much in that. There are lots of benefits that people could benefit from. I'm not inviting you to eat insects. I'm not going to eat insects, but I'm saying that if we will be more comfortable and allowing others to try, that will bring less suffering and more health, possibly. And I just don't want to be hypocrite. I don't want to be idealist. And I understand today my position is that some people can live without B12 supplement. Like my family, we don't have any symptoms of deficiency in B12. We checked our blood, we checked our urine, and we have normal B12. Sergei and Valya have excellent B12. So somehow our body has microorganisms that make it. But I met people who did develop B12 deficiencies on raw food diet, and they had to take supplements. So I think those people should consider, maybe looking at some kind of... By the way, insects come from the same, like crabs come from the same family as insects, anthropoids. So it's just like a big insect. So if you're eating crabs, you're already halfway there.
Do you know some of the symptoms of
B12 deficiency? Numbness. In the symptoms of B12 deficiency are numbness in certain, like tingling in certain, in fingers, toes, sometimes on the face, like frozen feeling. And some people develop patches of dry skin. And also then their memory loss and inability to concentrate, but those could be symptoms of other things too. Okay, let's move away from the insects for now. It's already embarrassing to talk about this. Yes, please.
Yeah, I got the mic. I don't want to bore anybody, but what's the difference between you saying the protein and plants and animals? What is chemically, unless people don't want to hear this? Mm-hmm. The amino acids and the peptide bonds.
See, I came to talk about spiritual, but everybody wants that this information, so no problem. There are 22 amino acids that our body needs in order to make a human protein molecule of protein. We need protein. Every reaction in a cell happens with the help of proteins, including brain cells. So we need proteins. But miraculously, our body could make 13 out of 22. Our body produces out of nothing, out of the air. But these 9, we have to eat. They have to come from outside. So these are these ones. Okay? And I took the most popular plants. I took kale and lamb's quarters. Lamb's quarters has nothing to do with the butcher store. It's a weed that grows in your backyard. We have lots of it here in Ashland. So what do we have here? This is RDA for average adult. This is 1 pound of lamb's quarters, and this is content of amino acids in kale. These are essential amino acids. Look here. Histidine, you need 560 milligrams per day. Lamb's quarters has 527. That's very close. Dr. Colin Powell, in his outstanding book, China Study, he proved that beyond any doubt that American government recommends like at least double of what we need of protein. So this is blown up figures. And even so, lamb's quarters have more. Like isoleucine has 700. Recommended 700. Lamb's quarters have 1149. Like every number here from now on is like bigger than here. And then kale. Kale has a little less than lamb's quarters because lamb's quarters have long roots. And they could get it from the soil that's not depleted. And then kale has still has very compatible numbers of amino acids. These are essential amino acids. It has all of them. Why we were led to believe that the vegetables are not essential source of protein? Because the greens have never been considered anything really important, because most people don't like them. So when you look at apples, for example, apples are very poor in protein. The same is with carrots. The same with, not the top, but the bottom. The same with beets. The same with whatever we call vegetables. Because greens are improperly placed in the category of vegetables. That's where the confusion comes from. Greens are so different from everything else, from all the plants, from mushrooms and from stems and from roots and from flowers. They're different. Greens are the most rich. They're many times, 1,000 times richer than any other plants. They are a separate food group. They have to be sold separately. And we have to have variety of greens. Because, for example, chimpanzees consume 117 kinds of greens per year. And we only have 34, including all the weeds available in this valley known, including all the sprouts, including everything, including even dill and parsley, which you cannot eat a lot. So we really don't have enough variety. Did I answer your question? No? Uh-huh. Yes, okay. Yes, they separated. Yes, exactly. For example, chicken has 14 amino acids in one molecule of protein in DNA, chicken. And humans need 18. Different. And each person have their own individual combination. So when you eat, for example, say chicken, you get in chicken protein. When you get fish, it has different variety. You have pig has different, lamb has different. So your body has to separate them first and then put them in your own. Like you just bind beads and then you have to rearrange them. If you want to know more about this, read the book China Study. I could even lend you one. I have one. And it just explains it there so wonderfully. Did I now answer your question? Yes. Please.
Let me get back to the spiritual side of things. In the Vedic tradition, which is what we call Hindu over here, they talk a lot about grains being they give a even keel. It allows us to have a smoother mindset instead of the up and down of most other diets. Do you want to compare that to just the green diet as you're talking about? Since I'm just trying to get it back to the spiritual conversation too, but comparing these two, because they've been talking about this for thousands of years. They talk a lot about greens over there in the Vedic tradition or the Hindu tradition.
I've studied grains, especially grains, milk, salt, meat, and sugar, because I've discovered that those 5 foods are the most addictive foods that we could possibly find on this planet for humans. And grains they have peptides, optimum peptides in them that are compatible to optimum peptides that our body generates when we experience pain or when we experience fear. So it's really very strong. Like in the moment of fear, or if you hurt yourself, you don't even feel pain. That's like opium in your blood. So grains have comparable amount of opium in it. And grains have been survival food for centuries for humans, because before the Industrial Revolution, humans could not survive in the case of drought or any other famine. If there was a flood or something, people just died. They didn't have enough food. They didn't have any way of refrigerate or protect food. And so grains was the only food, like one maybe of 2 or 3 foods that could be kept and people could eat it. And like milk was another one. If you have a cow and you just keep the cow safe, then cow will keep giving you milk. Then it's another survival food. So grains were survival food. And grains have been praised for centuries because of that also. But years before, people were consuming them in a sprouted form. For example, Essenes, they were consuming grains in a sprouted form. And there are lots of documentation that proves that. When they sprouted, they are less addictive and they are more like greens, like wheatgrass, like more towards, they have some different chemicals in them. But the grains, how we eat them today, bleached, when all the nutrients are taken away, depleted. If grains were such a great food, why in the world we need to fortify them with all the nutrients? You look at the bread and it says enriched with, and there's just this many things. I would just question that. You know, when there was Y2K coming, I looked at my friends collecting different things, and I said to my family, I said, let's just buy a bag of kamut. And I went online and I found kamut, which is a wheat, ancient kind of wheat, organic wheat. And I bought my family, I don't remember, 25 or 50 pound bag of kamut. And I said, we can live, four of us, we can live on that for 1 year. How? Not by making bread, not by making kasha, by taking a handful, sprouting it, and eating it as a sprouts. Because when you sprout grains, it has 100 times more nutrients than the grain. I didn't particularly make research yet about how they consumed greens in ancient India. But I doubt that everybody had enough fuel to cook it every day. I think only rich people, because until the 18th century, the only fuel existing was wood. And it was always lack of wood, always. There was never enough. And not everybody had a hearth in their house. And the matches were only invented in 1827. And before then, there was a flint or friction. Considering so many facts, there were people really did not cook much.
Well, I was really concerned about when it would talk about like the fruit. Because when I eat too much fruit, I get hyperactive. I don't have a lot of inner peace. I mean, I'm just agitated. And that's one of the things they talk about in that tradition.
Yes.
And I just might point out, in
Exactly.
India, a lot of people cook with cow dung, dried cow dung. So that's the major fuel in India. So they don't use wood. Cow shit, that's their fuel. And they cook with it in the house, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. I found out that when I was eating fruit, I also became hyperactive, and the only way how I could calm it down, I had to either go and work out, or I had to eat lots of nuts, which made me feel kind of heavy. But since I started to consume greens, and I don't juice them, I blend them, which have lots of fiber. The fiber absorbs extra sugar from the blood. It's a known fact. And so that counteracts. And even chimpanzees in nature, they don't just eat fruits in the morning and greens in the evening. They roll fruits in the green and eat them as a sandwich. So that shows that it's a perfect combination, naturally. Also, you said they cook with, what's that, Camden? Cow dung. Oh, I see. But, yeah, I see. But if does everybody has a cow? I think that if people cook 3 times a day, they still would not have enough. How many cows do they need to have?
20 minutes.
Thank you. Yes? Wheatgrass juice. Let me tell you a legend that I created, a myth, like a fairy tale, that will help you to understand this next part. Millions years ago, there were just plants, and no animals and no humans. And the plants had very hard time propagating. And so plants came up with a fruit. They said, we will make the fruit that will be extremely attractive to animals and humans, that they would want to come and eat. And then inside the fruit, we'll put the seed that they will swallow, but the seed will be covered with some I've been working with Russian language. I started to forget some English. Inhibitors. And so then it will go through the system, and it will go in the soil, far away from the tree, and that's a way of propagation. And so they did it. And they colored their fruit in very bright colors so that humans will see oranges and peaches and grapes and raspberries, and they just go around and eat all this fruit. But the fruit only comes once a year. And then humans ate the fruit, but they were so hungry, they went somewhere on the shore and they were eating the shellfish there and fish. And then when the next year the crop came, they didn't know about this because they didn't have calendars. And the birds didn't know. And so all the fruit went on the ground and just disintegrated, and there was no propagation. So this plants had the gathering, and they were having a meeting, and they were deciding how we could attract humans and birds and animals to stick together, to stick to their plants round the year. And they said, let's give them our leaves, because we can make as many leaves as possible as long as there is a sunshine. And at that time, there were no chemtrails, there was lots of sunshine. So they said, let's be it. And then it worked. But then the humans and birds and animals ate all the leaf from poor oak tree, and oak tree died. And then all the plants who survived it gathered another symposium, and they were deciding, what should we do? How do we make them eat a little bit of this plant, a little bit of that plant, a little bit of that plant? And then the young oak tree came up with a great idea, and he said, how about we put a little bit of toxin, of poison in each green, different on each plant. So they will eat a little bit of this, get poison, stop, go to the next one. And so that's what it is. Today, every single green in the world has a little bit of poison, which is a homeopathic amount of poison, which does not hurt you. It boosts your immune system, but you get tired of it. You move to the next one, like every goat, like every horse, like every bird. And that is why chimpanzees eat 117 of them, and the wheatgrass is not an exception. It also has alkaloids in it. For example, spinach has oxalic acid. And once in a while you read, oh, spinach is very poisonous, it has oxalic acid. Well, if you eat only spinach every day, 365 days a year, you're going to get poisoned. Kale has alkaloids that will lower your thyroid function. So don't eat too much of it every day. And then parsley has arsenic. And then romaine lettuce has opium. And so on and so on. And clover has nicotine. So every green has a little bit of something. But there are thousands. Recently, Dr. Mollerman, he's a world-renowned expert in edible greens, in edible plants. He just issued a new encyclopedia of edible plants of North America, which has 360 edible plants in it. 3,600. I said 3,600 edible plants in just Northern America. That including everything, including mushrooms and roots and everything. But there are a lot. We just don't know them. So wheatgrass juice is good. It's almost pure chlorophyll. But if you will eat only wheatgrass and a lot of it, you'll feel nauseous. So just move to next one.
I've been meaning to ask you along the same lines. What did you and your family eat when you were on the Pacific Crest Trail all that time?
When we were going on Pacific Crest Trail, we were very poor, and we decided that we're going to just live on sprouts because it's a superfood, and we loved Dr. Ann, and we just followed her steps. We said, well, so we bought lots. We spent all the money we could get on sprouts. We thought, perfect. You just take a little bit, you carry it in your bag and we bought 4 plastic gallon jars. And so we were growing sprouts while walking, while hiking. We just put it in the evening in the water, and then in the morning drain it, and just they keep growing as you walk in, and then in 3 days you have a gallon of greens. But because of that fairy tale I just told you, 2 weeks later, none of us could even look at any sprouts. We had 16 varieties of sprouts. We could not eat any more sprouts. We came in California to our next stop, to the post office, where we received our box, which had mostly sprout seeds in there. We just left them at the post office, the clover seeds and fenugreek and everything, and we had nothing to eat. Luckily, the date people donated us 6 dates per person per day. Why 6? Because at that time I read a book about Tibetan monks who, when they meditate, they eat 6 days per day. When they walk, they eat 3. So I thought, well, if they could live on 6, we could walk on 6. So I asked for 6 per person per day. So we had so many dates. We just packaged them and sent them along the way to the post office. And so no sprouts, only dates and a little bit of nuts. When we went on a hike, and it was 100-mile stretch, Igor and I had to carry all the dates because kids were 10 and 11 years old. It was quite little. And so they kept begging for, can I have another date? Can I have another date? So we just told, okay. And then 3 days later, there are no dates left. We're 30 miles away from this place, 70 miles ahead, and it's pouring rain, and there's nothing to eat. We have no dates left, just have water. We were so hungry. We said, oh, what the heck, we'll just fast for 7 days. It's okay. But we got really hungry. And suddenly all these greens along the walk started to look so yummy and crunchy. And kids began to ask me, can I eat that? Mom, can I eat that? And I was afraid they'll get into trouble. So we had a meeting and we decided, Igor said, let me eat some of them. And if I won't get sick, we'll decide that they're edible and we'll just start eating them. I said, why you? He said, because I'm the one who doesn't speak English. I say, well, who cares? In the woods, there's nobody to talk anyways. So we just said, everybody, there are 4 of us, everybody has a little bag. You go around and you pick up the samples of greens that look good to you, look edible. And just kind of rub them and taste them. And if they smell funny, just don't take them, but only the ones that kind of look good. And so 30 minutes later, everybody had a bag of variety of things. And we sat around and we just rubbed and we tried. And we didn't have any literature. We were just hungry people. And you would say, well, how dare you, Victoria? What bad mother you? But we were hungry and we just wanted to eat and we didn't have choice. And we felt fine. We didn't feel like we were risking our lives, really. We felt like we were in the palms of some universal spirit. And then Igor was the first one who ate. And we waited and we asked Igor, how do you feel? And he says, I feel I want more. And so we ate all these greens. And not only greens, we ate lichen and we ate some chanterelle mushrooms there and some other things. And we felt fine. And so we ate like this for 7 more days. And then when we came to the next town, we went to the library. And I looked in the book and we have chosen everything perfectly. It was what was edible in that. It was one that tasted like celery. One was tasting like asparagus, and some sour ones, and some tasting like wild garlic, and some others, and perfect. And so we continued to forage, and lichen was for us like bubble gum. And then also we liked the pith inside of the thistle. We would clean. Kids would fight for that. It was sweet. And then we loved cactuses. Igor had a special wide knife, a serrated knife that for cactuses. So you have to harvest cactus a certain way because this sticks, you know. So and they taste like bland cucumber. And then we had the map, we had the guidance which said there will be a water on that way. Don't carry water. So why would we carry water? Mostly Igor and I. Igor's backpack was 120 pounds. Mine was 65. Sergei's was 50, and Valya's was 35 or something. Yeah, here's pictures. And there was no water on that stretch. So we just gave we said, everybody's going around and figuring out how you're going to get the water. So Valya was collecting, how you call it? The dew? Not Mountain Dew. do. Sergei was juicing yucca flower, and Igor was making a hole and kind of doing something else. So we all came with a plan, and we were just having fun there. So we were able to managed to get some water in the desert. Oh, I was putting the little piece of tarp over some dug hole, and then in 2 hours there was just some drops of water on the tarp. So we figured out. No, все я уже это. So, and that was the best time, and very often we would eat our food and we would say, this is so good. Well, I was in my best weight then. But then when we came to civilization, we began craving food, with more stimulating taste, like oils and some salt. We didn't even have salt with us. So, questions? Yes?
Juice of the greens that you juice,
We blend.
blend? I'm sorry. 2 questions. Do you prefer a special kind of like a Vitamixer as opposed to a blender for getting them creamier? And also, do you recommend any 2 or 3 particular, or do you rotate through quite a few?
I will answer the second question first. I went to the farmer's market last summer, and I talked to farmers. I went around with several $20 bills, and I said, to any farmer who will bring me the weeds, I will, a bag of weeds next week, I will pay $20. And first they didn't trust me that I'll pay them, and slowly they started to bring, and I would come and I pick up the greens that people leave of carrots and beets and turnips. And so this summer, I had such a good relationship with farmers, and they had so much that I couldn't even consume. I was sharing with all my friends. I didn't use even once in the summer any edible greens that you buy in the store. I didn't use chard even once, or kale, or spinach. My whole family was living only on wild edibles. I was saving those for the wintertime, because for variety. And because of our effort, they even sold some of their lamb's quarters and some of the purslane in the co-op for $1.99 a bunch. Some of you might seen them. And I hope that the next year it will continue. My children developed a garden in our backyard this summer. My neighbors, I don't know if anybody of you know my neighbors, it's a terrace street. They kept coming and looking at our very weird garden. What in the world they are watering every morning and every evening? Looks like there's nothing there except the weeds. We just had weeds. I bought weeds, seeds, and I planted them, and we had lots of weeds, and we were watering them because we were eating them. And the first question was, is it blender? We are really, really lucky in this country that we have Vitamix blender, because my book has been translated into Hungarian language, Portuguese language, Hebrew, and Belgium, and all of these countries. And I'm translating now it in Russian. And of course, I don't even know how to translate Vitamix into Russian. They don't have Vitamix there. They just have regular blenders. I'm explaining to them not to use the blender like that, but just the blender that has something on it. But the Vitamix makes it so much more palatable. It's like whipped cream. You can benefit from just blending it in the small blender. But if you have children who are stubborn, or if you really want to help, if you want to absorb more greens, they need to be really homogenized, really need to be small particles. Then you will need to consume less smoothie, more of it will be absorbed. It's very beneficial. It is almost $400, but it's like one time. I purchased one especially for the office. I have one at home, one in my office. When I started drinking green smoothies, I began with 2 gallons per day. I was drinking 2 gallons of green smoothie per day. My body was so starved. Now I'm drinking 1 or 2 quarts per day, and I think I'm going to stick with that. I substitute my breakfast with 1 quart of green smoothie. And then sometimes I eat more. But it's just 1 quart is like a minimum. Because my body now had enough of it. And it's interesting, some of my hair is maybe like 2 years old, like old. And so you can see that part of it has a more silver color. And then here it's more like a red color. So it's not like gray. Gray somewhere disappeared. I didn't notice which day it disappeared. But I don't have anymore. I had lots of gray hair. And I don't have it anymore. And Igor used to have all gray chest. Like an old man. And now he has black. He doesn't have any gray hair on his chest. And also I used to have red dots, which is a not very good symptom. Like it's like AGEs, if you know what it is. It's advanced glycoxidation end products, AGEs, symptom of old age. And now those disappear. And also age spots disappear when you drink green smoothie. Green smoothies are a miracle. If you try, you love it. It's easy. Children love them. Everybody loves them. And no problems from them. And if even people, some too skinny, you can gain weight from green smoothies. And absolutely no no complications. Yes. Uh-huh.
I'm a real big fan of green juice myself, so I just want to like to add, like I use the
Juice or a blender?
I use the juicer because it's cheaper. The Vitamix is the ultimate, but otherwise I use a Juice Man juicer and I make a green juice.
So you throw away the fiber?
Yeah, a lot of it, I don't get as much out of it like I might with a Vitamix, but I still get a really green juice.
Well, I recommend sometimes, I say if you don't have a blender or Vitamix, you could juice it, but then you combine it and eat it with a spoon. Because the fiber is just like that Ashland sanitary recycling that goes around and picks up the garbage. Fiber under the microscope looks like a sponge. The toxins in the body have a positive energy, positive charge. The fiber has negative. So it attracts toxins. So each particle of fiber could hold like 14, 15 times more of toxins. We absolutely need fiber. Fiber is not a nutrient. It doesn't give you anything, but it takes out. I used to teach people that when you go on raw food, you should expect detox. And I was saying, oh, celebrate. It's even in some of my books yet, still. But now I say, if you detox, that means that you don't consume enough fiber. If you consume enough fiber, you don't need to detox. Your detox will be very mild. Because when the door is closed and the sanitary service cannot carry the bag out, then the body will begin to try to push it through the screen window, through the skin, through eyes, through ears, which we call detox.
Yeah, I try to make up with like eating apples and so forth and other.
That's not enough. Chimpanzees consume 300 grams of fiber per day. 300 grams. We recommended 30. Average American consumes 6. I was consuming 2. If you're juicing, you consume less than 2 grams of fiber. That's not enough. You accumulate toxins in your body. Yes, please. You can blend grass, but we're not grass eaters, and so you will get tired of grass. I mean, you will not die. You can get something from it, but your body will get tired of it. Grass has some particles that more cellulose, and it's hard for body to digest. I believe that we used to have a much stronger hydrochloric acid in our stomachs, and that we were able even to eat like linden tree and leaves and birch trees, but they have very high concentration of ash. And like only those animals who have hydrochloric acid higher could consume those. Now we can only eat tender leaves, like lettuce or kale. Well, you will even get tired of kale because it is more concentrated. 3 more questions? Well, I guess we cannot really talk too much about diet and spiritual. We could either speak about spiritual development, which I'm sure you had enough, I mean, not enough, it's never enough, a lot in this building, or we could talk about diet. But so I think it's okay. It's okay that we could talk about this. So, yes, please, your question. I'll repeat it.
What is your best recommendation for spiritual development?
my best recommendation for spiritual development is not to go to school, to decondition, to understand that we don't need knowledge, we need clarity. There's a big difference between knowledge and clarity. Knowledge is always somebody else's opinion, when clarity is your ability to see for yourself and make your own, present your own judgment, your own opinion in this, to see how it works. Because I think that people who have clarity, they can tell for themselves what they need, what they want, who they are, and where they're going to. And those are the most important questions. And unfortunately, majority of people in the world do not know what they want. They mistakenly think, or they conditioned to think, that they want money and car and garage and good family or health. But all of these things are just tools for something else, like a shovel. It's not a goal. Clarity, though, helps to understand where we're going, what we want, and what we need. My journey started notably when I went on a raw food diet. Partially, I think it because I started to go against mainstream, and very often there was nobody to ask. When we went on raw food 13 years ago, there was really no experts. There were like 5 books published on raw food, and you couldn't even buy them in Barnes & Noble. You have to know the author, so to buy it directly. We had to make our own decisions, and if I tell anybody, you know what, I'm just trying to make a lemonade cleanse, everybody will think I'm crazy. My neighbors kept reporting me to social services for neglectful education of my children. So we had to move for many years. And I was going against mainstream. My family were going against mainstream. We were learning how to think for ourselves. And that was the first step that brought us closer to spiritual awakening. We started to question everything. When I've learned that I don't have to drink milk 4 times a day to have calcium, then I figured out that maybe they're mistaken about anything else, authorities. Then I started to question, do I really need to always be warm? Do I really need to sleep on a soft, expensive, Posturepedic mattress? People lived without mattresses until 200 years ago. And everything. Do I need to buy glasses when I'm 40? And so many things. And when I started questioning everything, I've learned that I'm against almost everything. And I became weird. I started to wear sandals. Since we hiked, I just couldn't wear anything but sandals. And so if people want to be spiritual, I would say first to gain clarity and to decondition. And for that, there is an exercise you could do. You could start talking to yourself when you're driving or standing in line, and long line in post office now. You ask yourself, I used to be conditioned to believe that I should make everybody else happy before I make myself happy. Now I don't have it. And you think about things that you used to have and you change it. I used to be conditioned to think that the women are less important than men. I used to be conditioned to believe that I have to finish my plate. I used to be conditioned to believe that it's a shame to be poor. I used to be conditioned to think that I have to make my career to be a decent person. And then any of you have any of these things? What if I will give you back to you this belief? Would you take it? Would you take it? Answer to me, please. No, why? So is it good to find more of those and get rid of them? Deconditioning. And when you take all this condition, what will be there, that's awakening process. Then you begin to see the beauty of it.
So we're out of time.
Thank you so much.
RVML Resource Center is a volunteer-operated federal 501c3 tax-exempt nonprofit organization. RVML is dedicated to providing easy access to a comprehensive collection of information on a variety of metaphysical, spiritual, and personal development subjects. RVML accepts and appreciates all donations. Material and monetary contributions are fully tax-deductible. This recording is not copyrighted, and permission is granted to broadcast, exhibit, or duplicate all or part of this program for non-commercial educational purposes. This live presentation was organized and presented by the Rogue Valley Metaphysical Library and Event Center. For more information, please visit rvml.org.